So, on the night of March 15th, 2026, millions of people were basically glued to their screens, right, watching Hollywood celebrate the Oscars.
Oh, yeah. Red carpets, the designer gowns.
Exactly. Just a room full of famous people essentially clapping for other famous people. But the very next night, Monday, March 16th, a completely different kind of gathering took place.
Right. No broadcast, no gowns.
No gowns at all. Just a group of, unassuming community servants and residents sitting under the fluorescent lights of the Gilroy City Council chambers.
It's quite the contrast.
It really is. And ironically, the local pastor who gave the invocation that night, he actually brought up the Oscars. He pointed out that while local government might seem, kind of mundane, the decisions made in that room dictate the actual shape of our daily lives way more than anything that happened in Los Angeles the night before.
Yeah, and it's a striking contrast, really. You have the ultimate manufactured spectacle on one hand, and then the raw, unfiltered reality of municipal mechanics on the other. Looking at a single city council meeting it's essentially taking a core sample of American civic life. You get to see the past, the present, and the future colliding in real time.
And often in the exact same room.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Over the course of just a couple of hours.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because our mission today for this deep dive is to explore the fascinating tension between a city's colorful, quirky local history and the incredibly heavy modern mandates of housing, infrastructure, and technology that it's facing right now.
Right. And to do that, we are using the official agenda packet and the full transcript of that March 16th Gilroy City Council meeting to really look at the gears turning behind the scenes.
Yeah. And to really understand how a city builds its future, we first have to look at how it manages its past. Like, how does a modern city keep track of where it even came from?
Well, in Gilroy, that responsibility falls heavily on city historian Toby Eichelberry. According to his annual report, which he presented at this meeting, Toby is in the middle of a massive preservation mission. He is manually transcribing over 50 years of handwritten city clerk minutes into searchable Word documents.
Wait, manually?
Yeah, manually. He reported he's currently 37% of the way through the historical records.
I just have to ask, why manually? It's 2026. Don't we have digital archiving systems that can just, scan a piece of paper and turn it into text in 2 seconds?
We do, yeah, and the city actually uses those systems. But optical character recognition, or OCR, it struggles immensely with old, faded, cursive handwriting.
Oh, sure. I guess the cursor would mess it up.
Completely. The algorithms just can't parse the loops in the faded ink of a ledger from a century ago. So it literally requires human eyes and human interpretation to translate that history into the modern era.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. But through that manual labor, he's unearthing some pretty remarkable echoes. For instance, he noted a severe smallpox outbreak in 1907 that forced the city to instill an entire citywide quarantine.
Oh, wow. That sounds wildly familiar.
Right. What's fascinating here is that it shows public health mandates and lockdowns, they are not a modern invention.
Yeah.
They are deeply woven into the fabric of local governance.
That makes a lot of sense.
He also highlighted this bitter division in 1912 over a ballot measure to license the sale of alcohol. It passed by a margin of just 67 votes.
Wait, really? Just 67?
Yeah, it was 394 in favor and 327 against. And then fast forward to 1915, and the City Board of Health was battling a massive fly infestation.
A fly infestation?
Yeah, they were forced to launch a public education campaign on waste management just to get rid of the bugs.
That is so wild. It's like finding a messy, fascinating family diary that you're suddenly tasked with organizing, only to realize your ancestors were dealing with the exact same drama you are.
Exactly.
The specific details change. Maybe it's a new virus instead of smallpox, or a debate over modern zoning instead of alcohol licenses. But the fundamental friction of humans trying to live together in a dense area remains the same.
The challenges are entirely cyclical. But, history isn't just about preserving old ledgers. Toby also shared a story in his report about tracking down a pair of dog tags that belonged to a Gilroy resident named Daniel Esparza.
Oh, I read about this.
Yeah, those tags were somehow found in a storage locker all the way in Indiana. And Toby managed to research the family tree, locate Esparza's son living in Arizona, and physically return the tags to him.
See, that is the kind of deeply human, connective tissue that makes local government so vital. It's not just a faceless bureaucracy.
No, not at all.
And you see that same human element in the actual people running the city today.
You absolutely do. Take the new utilities operations manager they introduced at this meeting, Tyson Enweiler.
Right.
He's stepping into a role overseeing water treatment, distribution systems, regulatory compliance. And the interim director made a point to highlight his credentials, noting he holds a T5 water treatment operator certificate and a D5 water operator certificate.
Okay, so for those of us who don't work in municipal water management, what do those numbers actually mean? Are they just like basic exams you pass when you get hired?
Oh, not at all. In the water industry, those are top-tier, highly prestigious credentials.
Really?
Yeah, earning a T5 and a D5 means you have compounded years of hands-on experience. You've passed rigorous state examinations regarding really complex chemical dosing, massive volume management, strict environmental reporting.
Wow, it's a big deal.
It means he is certified to manage the most complex, massive water treatment facilities in the entire state of California. In fact, he referred to himself during the meeting as a guardian of the infrastructure.
I love that title. But the detail that really grounds him in the community isn't the state certification. It's that the guy with the elite state water credentials goes home to nearby Hollister, where he and his family raise 7 backyard chickens.
Yeah, it's such a great detail.
Right. You need highly technical, specialized expertise to keep the modern machinery of a city running. But the people applying that expertise are literally just your neighbors.
It perfectly illustrates the reality of municipal work, but, having a rich, quirky community culture inevitably brings us to a very real municipal problem.
Which is?
How does the city celebrate that culture today? And more importantly, who pays for the party?
Right, the money. At this meeting, the council had to tackle their new Community Event Support Program policy. The city clearly loves its events, but throwing a public event requires city services.
A lot of them.
Yeah, and the council had previously set aside $150,000 to subsidize these local nonprofit events, covering things like police overtime, fire personnel, and public works crews to manage street closures and trash collection.
But the reality of municipal accounting quickly caught up with them. That $150,000 wasn't nearly enough to cover the actual hard costs of the services requested by the community.
So what did they do?
They ended up having to dip into departmental salary savings just to cover the gap for the remaining events of the year.
Stop right there. What exactly are departmental salary savings? Because that sounds like they just cut people's pay to fund a parade.
No, it's a mechanism of how local government budgets are siloed.
Okay.
When a city approves a budget, they allocate funds for every single job position. If an employee leaves and that position sits vacant for, say, 3 months while they look for a replacement, the money allocated for those 3 months of salary goes unspent.
Oh,
Those are salary savings. So the city essentially had to sweep up the unspent paychecks from unfilled jobs across different departments just to pay the police overtime for local festivals.
That is wild. It's like deciding to throw a neighborhood block party, but realizing the municipal permits, the required off-duty police officer, and the street sweeping fees cost 10 times more than the hot dogs and the bouncy castle combined.
Exactly. You want to have the party, but the administrative overhead is crushing.
Yeah.
And it forces the city into a really difficult position of fiscal stewardship. They are dealing with public funds. They can't operate on a first-come, first-served basis. They have to centralize the process, rigorously evaluate applications, and set strict eligibility rules.
And this is where things get philosophically sticky. The city specifically noted that political campaigning and religious events are prohibited from receiving these subsidies.
Which makes sense.
Right, due to the separation of church and state with taxpayer funds. But during the meeting, a council member questioned the eligibility of the Our Lady Fatima procession, specifically noting that it includes rosary prayers.
Yeah, it's a blurry line. But the economic development manager clarified the legal mechanism there. The event was deemed eligible because the organization presents itself and the event legally functions as a Portuguese cultural heritage celebration.
Okay.
So the religious elements are legally classified as incidental to the cultural display. It really highlights the hidden administrative toll we rarely think about. The city isn't just cutting checks, they're interpreting cultural nuances, enforcing general plan alignment, and calculating the exact productive hourly rate of a police officer working weekend overtime.
But the public comments during this meeting really drove home why navigating that administrative friction is worth it. We heard from a woman named Delin Yatskovich from Rebuilding Together Silicon Valley. Her organization fixes up homes for low-income seniors and people with disabilities. And she cited this staggering statistic. Every $1 spent on urgent home repairs saves $19 in Medicare and medical costs.
That is such a powerful reframing of community investment.
Hmm?
It transforms the concept from simple charity into systemic cost avoidance.
Exactly.
By funding a WAMP or fixing a roof, you keep someone safely housed, which prevents a cascade of incredibly expensive emergency medical interventions down the line.
Yeah. And then you had the lighter side of community investment. A resident named Craig stepped up to the podium to share what he did on his recent vacation to Disneyland.
Oh, this was great.
He wore a Gilroy closed-days tank top with a big heart on it and spent his time standing in long theme park lines, actively promoting the Gilroy Garlic Festival to complete strangers.
You simply cannot buy that kind of grassroots word-of-mouth marketing.
No, you really can't. And on the heavier side, we also heard a public comment from Makan Gupta regarding the homelessness crisis. And we're sharing his perspective here impartially to show the breadth of issues the council faces.
Right.
He expressed strong support for funding programs that help the unhoused, noting his own volunteer work delivering meals.
Yeah.
But he also advocated for tying that help to accountability, asking the council to implement programs that require cleanliness and responsibility. He compared it to how he requires his own children to clean their rooms before receiving privileges.
When you look at those public comments side by side, urgent home repairs yielding a 19-to-1 medical ROI, grassroots Disneyland tourism, and complex perspectives on homelessness accountability, it shows the sheer volume of priorities a city council has to absorb.
But while the city is trying to manage all these local desires, they're simultaneously getting crushed by a completely different pressure from the state of California.
Yeah, which brings us to the 2025 General Plan and Housing Element Annual Progress Report presented at the meeting. Because if local festivals are draining the operational budget, state mandates are fundamentally altering the city's blueprint.
So what does this all mean for the listener? Imagine your boss comes to you and hands you a massive, highly complex project. But they don't give you any extra budget, they don't give you any extra staff, and the rules for how to complete the project change every few months.
It's a nightmare.
That is essentially what the state is doing to local cities regarding housing and infrastructure.
It is a very apt comparison. The state uses a complex formula called the Regional Housing Needs Allocation, or RHNA. The state algorithms look at job growth, transit, population trends, and then they assign a quota to every single city.
Okay.
So for this current cycle, ending in 2031, the state mandated that Gilroy plan for 1,773 new housing units across various income levels.
1,773 units?
Yep.
And how many units did the city actually issue permits for in 2025?
37. 37 out of a multi-year goal of nearly 1,800.
And it gets even more revealing when you look at what those 37 units actually are. 29 of them were accessory dwelling units ADUs.
Wow.
So the entire city's progress toward this massive state housing goal is essentially being carried by individual homeowners quietly building secondary units in their backyards.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it illustrates a profound systemic bottleneck. It's not that the city doesn't want housing. They have large multifamily projects in the pipeline, including a 100% affordable housing project on Monterey Road.
Right.
But large-scale development gets delayed by site remediation, weather, financing, and an incredibly dense thicket of regulations.
Well, let's talk about those regulations because the state passed a new law, Assembly Bill 3093. This law created two brand new income categories that cities have to track, acutely low income and extremely low income. But what is the actual mechanism here? How does a city suddenly start building for categories that didn't even exist when their original quota was assigned?
That is the bureaucratic nightmare of it. Because Gilroy received its housing allocation before AB 3093 passed, the state didn't actually give them new numerical targets for these categories.
Wait, what?
Yeah, the state simply mandated that the city has to track them and report them anyway. It adds another massive layer of paperwork to an already strained planning department without actually building a single new home.
That is so frustrating. Councilmember Ramirez made a vital point about this regulatory exhaustion during the meeting. She highlighted the sheer volume of new housing laws the state passes, sometimes hundreds per year.
It's relentless.
The reporting requirements alone have morphed from a simple spreadsheet into a massive document that requires city staff to attend specialized webinars just to figure out how to fill it out.
And it extends far beyond housing, too. The state also hands down strict environmental infrastructure mandates. At the same meeting, the council had to approve a $143,370 contract to a company called Apex to physically install 73 small trash capture devices.
Which is to comply with the state trash amendments for stormwater. Keeping trash out of the waterways is obviously a crucial environmental goal.
Absolutely.
But again, look at the mechanism. It's an unfunded, top-down mandate. The state basically says, you must do this to reach compliance, and the local city has to open its checkbook, go out to bid, and figure out how to physically install 73 grates into their existing aging drainage system.
It creates a tremendous friction between local control and statewide planning. The city is trying to manage its own unique landscape and limited budget while basically wearing a regulatory straitjacket designed in Sacramento.
And the irony of struggling to build those 1,773 homes is that even if they do build them, they have to continually attract new industry to support the tax base.
Right.
Which brings us to the ultimate friction point. When massive global technology comes to a small town, who actually gets a say in what gets built?
This is where local democracy truly gets put to the test.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Council members Ramirez and Marcus brought forward a future agenda item requesting options for adding public hearings to the architectural and site review permit process.
Yeah, and to understand why this is a big deal, you have to understand how the permit process currently works.
Okay.
Normally, an architectural and site review permit is handled entirely internally by city staff. If a developer submits a project and it meets all the existing zoning codes, environmental standards, and design guidelines, the staff approves it. No public hearing is legally required.
But this specific request to change the rules was sparked by a massive controversy over an Amazon Web Services or AWS data center.
Right.
The city staff did everything by the book. They followed all the rules. They even set up a dedicated web page to answer questions. But because there was no legally required public hearing for the permit itself, a lot of residents felt entirely blindsided when they found out this massive server farm was coming to town.
It is a direct clash between administrative efficiency and public transparency.
And we heard some very passionate and very different views on this from the public. Lance Polva, an organizer for the Stop the Gilroy Data Center campaign, spoke up. He stated his group had gathered 5,000 signatures against the project.
Wow, 5,000.
Yeah. He pointed to fears over massive water and energy consumption, as well as noise pollution. And he argued that if a public hearing had occurred, the residents would have made their opposition clear, and the project wouldn't have been approved.
Which is a completely valid concern for residents looking at the strain a data center puts on a local grid. But then you had Ron Kirkish, who offered a completely different historical perspective based on the city's past.
Oh, right.
He pointed out that decades ago, the area was home to massive semiconductor companies and IBM facilities. He argued that those historical tech companies used millions of gallons of water and immense amounts of power, and the city handled it just fine.
That's a fair point.
He also noted that the city is sitting on 650,000 square feet of underground water storage. From his viewpoint, data centers are simply the new iteration of industry, and the city has the resources to support them.
Well, the council ultimately voted 5-2 to have staff return with options for adding public hearings to these permits. But Councilmember Hilton added a really fascinating caveat before the vote.
They did.
He supported the motion to explore options, but he stressed that the public needs to be educated on what a city council can and cannot legally deny.
This is a crucial legal mechanism that often frustrates the public. Hilton pointed out that the council cannot just vote a project down based on their feelings.
Right.
If a developer meets all the legal zoning requirements that are already on the books, the city is often legally obligated to approve it. If they deny it just because 5,000 people signed a petition, the city will get sued and they will lose.
Which makes you wonder, does adding a public hearing to every permit process actually change the legal outcome? Or does it just paralyze the city's ability to function and grow by bogging everything down in endless debate? You want transparency, but you also need to actually issue permits and get things built.
This raises an important question, and it's one of the defining struggles of modern urban planning. How do you balance hyper-local democracy, the right of neighbors to protect their immediate environment, with the necessary development of global infrastructure? Data centers run the modern world. They have to go somewhere.
Very true. When you step back and look at the entirety of this single Monday night meeting, it's an incredible journey. We started with the echoes of a 1907 smallpox quarantine and the slow manual archiving of handwritten history. We moved through the financial mechanics of rating salary savings to fund local block parties. We saw the crushing weight of the state's algorithm demanding 1,773 housing units, while the city relies on homeowners building backyard ADUs just to hit 37. And finally, We arrived at the friction of a massive AWS data center colliding with the demands of neighborhood democracy.
It proves that these meetings are the engine room of society. The decisions made under those fluorescent lights dictate the water quality, the housing market, the traffic, and the vibrancy of the community.
It really does. And it leaves me with a thought to mull over. We are watching cities increasingly rely on highly complex, automated systems, right? Massive data centers to run the cloud, intricate state algorithms to dictate housing allocations, optical character recognition to digitize history. Everything is becoming streamlined, standardized, and digitized.
The machinery is getting undeniably more complex.
But as that happens, what happens to the quirky, human connective tissue of local government? Will the future of civic management become so incredibly sterile and digitized that we lose the charm of a local historian manually tracking down dog tags in an Indiana storage locker?
That's a great question.
Or a top-tier water manager who goes home to tend to his 7 backyard chickens?
It's the ultimate tension between cold efficiency and warm humanity.
Hollywood can keep the red carpets and the golden statues. Because the real drama, the real stakes, and the real stories of how we live together are playing out every single week in city council chambers, just like this one.
A fascinating deep dive.
Thanks for unpacking it with us. Until next time, keep looking closer at the world around you.